here say hello. So let's go ahead and give them a quick wave. So I am joining you guys live from a classroom as well this morning for World Habitat Day. We're so happy to have you all. I would just want to give you a couple reminders before we get to our trivia. So first off, if you can let us know your school name and your country. So you just click on the 3 dots next to your face. Let us know your school name and your country. I'm joining you from Edmonton, Alberta. And what is our school name? Archbishop Joseph McNeil. So I'm with the 4-5 class here today. So if you can go ahead and change your name. During the event, if you have questions, you can type those questions into the chat, or you can use your little raise hand emoji, and I'd be happy to call on you and have you ask those questions. If you have a camera available, we would love to see your cameras and see all your smiling faces. Okay, and one last reminder, please do not unmute unless you are asked to. So we have lots of schools in here today. It can get noisy if we are all unmuting. So make sure if you do have a question, you wait until we invite you if you're going to unmute. Okay, so let's go ahead and get our trivia up on the screen. So we have a couple trivia questions to do while we wait for all of our schools to join in. In one moment. Actually, I guess I could read you guys the first trivia question while we wait for those slides to get up. So our first trivia question, and we can try typing it in the chat as well. And we are going to call on one student from this classroom as well to answer this. So my first question is, how many of the world's plant species live in the rainforest? How many of world plant species live in the rainforest? Do we think that it is 1/4, 1/3, 1/2, or 3/4? So go ahead and check with your classes. You guys can type it in the chat. And I am going to have one student from my classroom come up in front of our camera and let me know what they think the right answer is. I'll let your teacher choose who's going to come up and give the answer. So Talia, you can come right up here in front of our camera and let everybody know what you think. I'll say right now in our chat, we're getting a lot of A's and C's. So right over here on this side. Perfect. And what do you think the answer is?
I think it's
A. All right. Sarah, can you bring us to our answer page? We'll see what the right answer is. B. So about 1/2 of all plant species live in the rainforest. Has anyone here ever been to the rainforest before? Oh, a few of us. That's pretty awesome. All right, let's take a look at the next question. So our next question is, which of the following is a pollinator? Do we think it's a bee, a moth, a beetle, or all of the above? Who would we like to answer for this one? Okay, and I'll say right now in our chat, I'm getting some bees. People think that bees are pollinators. I'm getting some more bees. We're getting a lot of bees. Okay, what do you think it is?
I'm gonna say
Bees? Okay, a lot of people are saying bees. Sarah, can you let us know what the right answer, please? It is all of the above. So guys, we do think about bees as being our pollinators, but actually all of these things do pollination. Beetles, moths, lots of insects, lots of birds. Okay, so when we think pollinators, it's actually lots of different things. Okay, we have one last trivia question as we wait for our last schools to get in. How much have wild populations declined in the last 50 years? So that's plants and animals. How much have we lost in the last 50 years? Okay, so 10%, 20%, 50%, or 70%. Okay. Oh, I got my letters are mixed up on this one. A, B, C. Yes, I think you're saying the same thing as everybody else, 70%. Let's see what the right answer is. Awesome job, you guys. Let's give you a quick round of applause. You guys did great. You know a lot about habitats already. I think we're in for a good live event today. So I would like to officially welcome you all to World Habitat Day. And before we actually begin the live event, I would love to start with a land acknowledgement. If we can go to the next slide, please. So I would like to acknowledge that we are joining from Amiskwaciwâskahikan. So this is colonially known as Edmonton, Alberta, and it's found on Treaty 6 territory. This has been the traditional gathering place and traveling route to many peoples, including the Cree, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Métis, Dene, and the Nakota Sioux. And since we're all joining from a virtual platform, I'd also like to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the traditional territories that everyone is joining from across Turtle Island and around the world. So having a respect for the land that gives us our food and our shelter and our life is a very important step in the reconciliation process with Indigenous groups. They have worked as protectors of these precious resources for time immemorial. We have a really wonderful opportunity today to learn a bit more about the impacts that we can have on this shared world. So I invite everybody participating for World Habitat Day to take a moment to reflect on the conservation work that Indigenous peoples have taken part in and continue to uphold around the world, and how we can take steps towards honoring this practice in our own lives. And we are going to hear from a few people today of what a few of those practices might look like. Before we get to our first speaker, I would like to quickly go over what our schedule for the event looks like, because it is very full. So we are going to have speakers from 4 of our partner organizations. If we could get the next slide, please. 4 of our partner organizations are going to be sharing with you today, including a youth, so a child just like you, sharing about some of the actions that they're taking in their classroom. And at the very end, we will have a little bit of time for Q&A. But throughout the event, if you do have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat. I'm sure any of my guests here would be happy to answer them in the chat, just so we can make sure we squeeze them in. Now, I do have one more reminder. Next slide, please. We have an activity sheet. So my students have this activity sheet in front of them. Some of you joining us might not have this exact one printed off, but that's okay. You can use a blank white piece of paper. That works totally fine. During the event, what I would like you to do is I would like you to draw your favorite habitat. What does a thriving, happy, natural habitat look like? One with a lot of biodiversity. Okay, so it can be a coral reef, it can be a rainforest, it can be a boreal forest, whatever you would like to draw. I would love to see your art, and we're going to share it a little bit at the end of the event. Okay, I would love to welcome our first guest speaker. So Mala Sharma, from cute and cuddly kittens to creepy crawly insects. Mala has always had a passion and love for nature. She studied environmental studies at York University and embarked on her mission to become an environmental educator. She absolutely loves teaching about the ocean conservation and is motivated to inspire youth around the world to take action against climate change. So welcome, Mala. I will pass the mic over to you.
Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, from wherever you're joining from. Welcome to today's session. Rebecca, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk to you all about one of my favorite ecosystems, which is an ocean ecosystem. I know there's so many different types of habitats that exist underwater. And before getting started, I wanted to pass it over to you folks. I want to know what type of ocean ecosystem you know of. Rebecca mentioned one of them already, but message me in the chat, or you can raise your hand in your class, or we can maybe ask folks to unmute. Know any underwater habitats? All right, we have somebody in the chat come in and mentioning, oh, Alex is mentioning coral reef in the chat. Yes, absolutely. What are some other habitats? Where might animals live in the water?
My class is saying rocks and schools of fish.
Yeah, for sure. I see people in the chat mentioning the deep sea, underwater caves. Ooh, getting specific with the Pacific Ocean, so maybe the different oceans in the world, for sure. These are amazing answers, my friends. Today, we are going to explore an ecosystem that wasn't talked about yet, but is actually a really, really important ecosystem underwater, and that is kelp forest. But before we do, let me introduce myself a little bit more, introduce my organization and who I work for a little bit more. As mentioned, my name is Mala. I use she pronouns, and I actually have the privilege to be able to speak to you all from the traditional territory of many different nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Huron-Wendat people. This land is also home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. And before getting the program started, I wanted to honor this land that I'm speaking to you all from and extend my thanks to the communities who have been taking care of our wonderful land, sea, and sky since time immemorial. Now, two of my favorite ocean animals are whale sharks and sea slugs. I think they're absolutely wonderful. Sea slugs, especially because there's so many different kinds of them. And they live all around the ocean in so many different kinds of habitats. I work for OceanWise, and OceanWise is focused on helping protect the ocean and address three major issues in specific, which include ocean pollution, overfishing, and climate change. I'm here today to talk to you all about our wonderful ocean and one ecosystem in specific. Now, one thing that us as humans, we need in order to survive is oxygen. And oftentimes when we think about where we get our oxygen from, we might think of trees and forests that grow on land. But what if I told you that there's an underwater forest and our ocean is responsible for producing more than 50% of the oxygen that we breathe? But underwater forest and that ecological habitat that I'm talking about is kelp forests. These ecosystems are incredibly rich in diversity, and they play a very, very important role in ocean and even land health. So today we're going to explore seaweed. We're going to talk about different animals that live inside of kelp forests, the threat that they're facing, and maybe come up with some solutions to help protect the kelp forest. My friends, kelp is something that we have all probably heard. It's seaweed. But seaweed is really, really important. It's found all around the world. It's actually at the uppermost zone of our ocean. It's around 200 meters deep and grows the same way that a bunch of plants on land do. It grows using a process called photosynthesis. And this is when plants and organisms will, take the energy of the sun, convert it into sugar and energy, and produce oxygen for us to breathe. Kelp is also really, really important because it represents something very important for indigenous communities and coastal communities for a very long time. I have a true or false question here for us all. I want to know if you think kelp has been used sustainably to fish for generations. Do we think seaweed can be used to catch fish? What do we think? True or false? Show me a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you're on camera. Seeing a lot of thumbs up. Seeing a lot of people mention true in the chat. Oh, you all got it. Everybody's guessing true, and you would be absolutely correct. It is definitely true. My friends, communities have used seaweed for generations to catch fish. In fact, reef net fishing, which is this top picture here, was practiced by many different coastal communities to harvest salmon. They would use seaweed as traps and to lure in different types of fish so that they could eat them. Kelp is also used to harvest herring eggs, which is a really common delicacy for a lot of different coastal communities like Salish communities and the Haida in British Columbia. They would use kelp to kind of trap, whales and fish, Pacific herring, they like to lay their eggs on top of kelp. So a lot of times groups would come and collect this kelp and snack on these eggs. So it's a way to sustainably fish for sure. My friends, there are also a bunch of different animals that live inside of our kelp forest. There are so many animals that live inside of seaweed, some of them that we might recognize ourselves. One of them is super, super spiky, can be red or purple. And my friends, this guy is a sea urchin. Sea urchins are really, really spiky and round animals, and they like to eat a lot of seaweed. They actually crawl around using these little tentacles that grow on their bodies, and they crawl along the ocean floor. This is what it looks like when they're using their tentacles to kind of crawl on the ocean floor. Kind of weird. They look a little strange. But they love to eat seaweed. These guys can eat a lot of seaweed in a day. In fact, they can eat too much seaweed. There's another really important animal that lives inside of that ecosystem that helps protect it. It's actually a keystone species, meaning that without this animal, the kelp forest would not survive. In fact, some people in the chat are mentioning what that animal is, and it is in fact sea otters. Sea otters love to eat sea urchins. Mother sea otters will use seaweed to wrap their babies in as like a kind of like a daycare so that their babies don't float away in the water. But they'll also eat a lot of sea urchins. Male sea otters can eat around 50 sea urchins in a day. So imagine how much a whole family can eat. These guys are super cute, super cuddly, and they have a really important role to play in our ocean. Kelp forests are very, very complex, delicate, and biodiverse ecosystems that have so much life. There are so many animals that live inside of this habitat that all rely on each other. And just like most habitats around the world and in our ocean, it's really, really important to maintain balance because the absence or the removal of one animal can have a really, really big impact on these ecosystems. For example, the connections and relationships between sea otters, sea urchin, and kelp is a really, really strong relationship in our ocean. For example, kelp grows and it becomes a habitat. It becomes food and oxygen and safety for thousands of organisms like the sea otter and like sea urchins. Sea otters rely on that kelp as home and for protection, and sea urchins will use it also as a home and for food. But sea urchins can end up eating way too much kelp and destroy that ecosystem. So balance is really, really important. At one point, sea otters were actually hunted to extinction in British Columbia. And that meant that there weren't many animals around that could help control sea urchins. Without sea otters, sea urchins grew a lot in numbers and they ended up eating a lot of the kelp. And what did that mean for that ecosystem? It meant that we now had sea urchin barrens, meaning that sea urchins kind of took over the ocean. This is what it can look like when there's too many sea urchins in the ocean and they've removed all of the kelp. It's not very good because removing the kelp is getting rid of the habitat for all these animals that rely on it. So it's really, really important that we do what we can to protect kelp forests. In fact, one thing that we can do is eat sustainably. We can actually eat sea urchin. Sea urchin is a really, really popular delicacy around the world. I want you to show me a hand, raise your hand, or message me in the chat if you've ever had sea urchin, or maybe if you'd ever be willing to try it. Anybody ever have sea urchin? I believe it's called uni in some different languages. No, it doesn't seem like a lot of people have tried it. My friends, if you ever try it, know that you're helping the ocean if you're having sustainable sea urchin. But just to give you a little bit of an idea of what it tastes like, it actually kind of tastes and feels like butter. So it's probably pretty tasty. My friends, kelp forests are really, really important. How exactly does seaweed help the ocean? You know, it's a habitat, as I mentioned. It traps carbon and it produces a lot of oxygen as well. We use it in a bunch of different objects, or sorry, in a bunch of different things as well that maybe we don't know about. I want to play a game here really, really quick before I run out of time. We have 2 more minutes for me. But my friends, I want you to tell me if you think that this item has seaweed in it. Ice cream. Do we think ice cream has seaweed in it? Message me in the chat or show me on the camera a thumbs up or down. What do we think? Ooh, getting a lot of no's. My friends, ice cream, some brands of ice cream do in fact have seaweed inside of them. So you've probably eaten seaweed inside of ice cream. What about sunscreen? Do we think sunscreen has seaweed inside of it? Ooh. Getting a lot of different answers, getting a lot of yeses and a lot of no's. I'll show us the answer in 3, 2, 1. The answer is, in fact, yes. A lot of sunscreen brands that we use will indeed have seaweed inside of them. And last but not least, toothpaste. Are we cleaning our teeth with seaweed? What do we think? If it's in ice cream, odds are it's also in toothpaste. I see a lot of people guessing true, and you would be absolutely correct. It is also in a lot of different types of toothpaste as well. My friends, we use seaweed for a lot of different things and we use it every day. So it's really, really important to do what we can to protect kelp forests. At OceanWise, we have a team dedicated to growing kelp in our ocean. We swim through the ocean. We grow these tiny little baby kelps inside of our lab. And we put them back into the ocean to grow, eventually growing these massive kelp forests, right? And providing a home and a habitat to many different animals. Kelp forests are really, really important because, you know, they're very, very sustainable and they grow really, really fast. They're important for animals and also for us. So we need to do what we can to protect these habitats and these ecosystems. Some things that we can do to help do that is eat sustainable seafood. So you can eat things like sea urchin. You can also eat seaweed to kind of make it more popular. Another thing that you can do is buy sustainable seafood from Ocean Wise that we've recommended to make sure that, you know, you're doing what you can to be conscious about what you're bringing to your table. You can also learn and support about organizations and initiatives around you to kind of you know, be part of the learning process, and you can also share the knowledge. So if you learned something new today, you can go and tell your peers what you learned and hopefully keep that conversation going. All right, that is all for me. Thank you all so much for giving me an opportunity to talk to you all about seaweed. I hope you all enjoyed the program. I'll pass it back for the next speaker.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm going to warn you, our school had a practice lockdown during that presentation. We're back now. I don't know if we got every part of it, so hopefully there were some great questions. Before we move on to our next speaker, I know that Mala has to possibly hop out a bit early and I don't want her to miss this, but we like to do a group photo for our activities that we do. So for our group photo, what we're going to do is we are going to do hands up for habitat. So I'm going to count down from 3, 3, 2, 1, and we're all going to put our hands up for habitat. So I'm just going to turn my camera around so that my kiddos can be in the picture
Can I
too.
talk to Mala?
Just a second, Bentley. We see you.
All right, so we are going to go 3, 2, 1. Hands up for habitat. Beautiful. Let's do one more just to make sure that we got it. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Beautiful. Okay, Bentley, you can go ahead and ask your question before we get to our next speaker.
Mala, I see you got a whole bunch of fish in the background.
I do. This is a recording of an aquarium. I am not underwater, unfortunately, but I like to have different types of fish swimming around behind me. This would be a lot of coral reef animals, so a lot of reef fish swimming behind me.
Wow, I thought it was real.
It is a real aquarium. It is a real tank. We just recorded it and I use it as my background, so y'all can see some cool fish.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What's your favorite fish?
Oh, my favorite fish, I did say whale shark. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bentley. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and introduce our next guest, if we could get our introduction slide up, if possible. Our next guest is Adriana, who is joining us from GreenLearning. So Adriana manages the development of GreenLearning's education programs and projects. She loves turning student learning into action by working on hands-on projects with students and teachers across Canada. With a BA in environmental studies, she has ample professional experience in stakeholder engagement and program coordination in the environmental and nonprofit sector. So I am going to now pass the microphone over to Adriana to talk to you guys a little bit about one of the ways that you can take action for the environment today.
Thanks so much, Rebecca, and hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. My name is Adriana, and I'm so excited to be here to celebrate World Habitat Day with you all. So I work for a place called GreenLearning, where we create really fun activities all about the environment for kids just like you. We also like to make sure that student voices get shared all around the planet, so we have something called e-cards. So right now, you have a piece of paper in front of you, and you'll get the chance to share your drawings, your thoughts, your opinions, and your understanding of what the presenters today are talking about. So my job is to actually take those messages and that artwork that inspires you based on what we talk about today and help you share them with the world. Now, I'll just share my screen really quickly here to provide you with some really great examples of e-cards that students have submitted in the past. So these are from students from grades 2 all the way to grade 12. So each of these images and blocks and texts were submitted by different students from around the world. So if you want to write something, you can. If you want to draw something, you can. Really great. We've got some really fantastic like underwater e-cards here that look really neat, which I absolutely love. So basically what happens is, with the help of your teacher or a grown-up, we actually take your artwork and help you get it online. So with your e-cards, we take your work and we put it on our website for anyone to see and to learn from your message. And we also send an email to anyone you think could help make a difference. So if there's a teacher, a principal, a politician, a business person, or even a celebrity that you think should hear your message or take a look at your artwork, we actually send that artwork to the person, and that lets them know what you care about. So we take your message and we get it to the grown-ups and adults that are able to help make a difference. So when you're done our session today and you're done with that really great artwork, or if you want to do any texts or quotes or anything like that, write down anything that inspires you. Please give your sheet to a teacher or a grown-up and they will help submit it on our website. So I know teachers are very busy, so if you also like to email them to me, I can get it up on our website, and we could also forward it to any type of adult or politician or even celebrity that you'd like to forward it to. So I'm so looking forward to seeing all of your artwork at the end of this session. I'm just so excited to see all of that. So I will pass it back to Rebecca here, and we can chat more.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I see all of the kids in my classroom are working really hard at their e-cards right now. I will say one more thing. If you are drawing an e-card right now, it is a great idea to flip it over and on the back, write a message for biodiversity or a message for habitat. What is one thing you want people to know about habitats, right? Something you want people to do. Do we want to help turtles? Are we against pollution? Do we love trees? What is your message for Habitat Day? If you put those on the back of your e-cards, and that's even better, we can put a message with them as you send them in. We'll do one quick question from Mathia before we move on to our next speaker.
Do you know Taylor Swift and Billie Eilish and Justin Bieber?
So I don't know any celebrities personally, but we could always try, finding their information and trying to get your e-card to them. We're also trying to really send, show many people our e-cards gallery. So hopefully if we get enough e-cards in one day, it'll get enough traction for many people to see and many people to look at on our website. Great question.
Wow, I thought you knew Taylor Swift.
So much for the questions. That's great. Okay, up next, I'm going to introduce, we got 2 more speakers still, lots to get through. So our next speaker is Louisa Kino. Louisa is a social innovation and outreach manager with a group called TakingITGlobal. She was born in Manila, Philippines, grew up in Winnipeg, and now lives in Toronto. She is a global motivational speaker who is passionate about advocating for youth mental health, gender equity, and human rights. And in 2018, she became one of the youngest top 25 RBC Canadian Immigrant Award recipients, and the youngest RBC Award youth recipient. So we are in great hands. I will pass it over to Louisa to talk to you guys about your next option for taking action for the habitat.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rebecca. And thank you everybody for being here. Happy World Habitat Day. I'm so excited to be here with you and to share a cool challenge that we have going on here at TakingITGlobal. So we have a super exciting classroom challenge that I'd like to share with you, and it's called the Low Carbon Classroom Challenge. We've made a platform called Commit to Act, and you can use it to track your actions that are helping the environment. So for example, if you use a reusable water bottle, you walk to school, you bike to school, or you take the bus, you're doing things that are helping to fight climate change. You can even compare your impact and compete against your classmates and other young people across the world. So through this challenge, we want to see your classroom come together and see how much CO2 you can save all together. This challenge is going on all across Canada, and the first 50 teachers that have more than 10 students sign up will get a Commit to Act water bottle. And the best part is that the top 3 classes that save the most CO2 will get a $250 gift card for a low carbon lunch they can enjoy all together. So for the teachers in the room, we have teachers' guides and lesson plans to go along with 7 sustainable actions that are on the platform. And for the students, I encourage you to use the platform with your friends, see how much of an impact a few people can make. And I know sometimes it may not feel like you're making a difference when you walk to school one day or you use a reusable water bottle, but if you do it and 10 friends do it, that's called collective action, and you are being a part of a very big difference. So before today ends, I want you all to think of 1 sustainable actions that you will try to do every day, and feel free to share it in the chat. And always remember, there's no such thing as a change that's too small. So we hope to see you in our challenge. And for the teachers, I'll also drop my email in the chat if you'd like to receive more information. Thank you again, everyone, for being here, and happy World Habitat Day.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So a really great way for any of our schools participating teachers, if you're listening, you can win a sustainable lunch for your classroom by logging actions on this Commit to Act app. Now, I will be sending up a follow-up email after this event to all of the schools that are registered, and we will have links to this in case you didn't quite get the QR code. So we do still have an option for you to join in and start logging some actions. So if any of the students listening have an idea of a sustainable action they're doing in their life, using a reusable water bottle, eating a vegetarian meal, you can type them in the chat. We would love to see what you guys are doing for Habitat Day. Okay, I have one last presenter I would like to share before we get to our Q&A. So if you have questions, hold on to them. We are almost there. So our final presenter is Armin. Armin is a high school student from W.P. Wagner School in Edmonton, Alberta. Armin likes to read books and even write stories of her own. She's passionate about nature and is currently working on school initiatives to promote biodiversity in her community. So Armin, you can go ahead and unmute, and we would love to hear about what you were working on in your school.
Hello, everyone. My name is Armin, and as we know, I go to W.P. Wagner in Edmonton. So happy World Habitat Day, and I'm going to start off with who I am, because you're probably wondering, who exactly am I? So, next slide, please. I am a Canadian high school student, which means that every winter I've braved the cold just to get to class, where I learn a lot about the world and also get a lot of homework. But don't let that scare you. It is pretty fun. I am also a crafter. I like to paint things and embroider things. I do a lot of different mediums, and sometimes I like to mix them too. Another thing I like to make are terrariums. These are little jars filled with plants that survive all on their own. Terrariums combine my love of making things with my love of plants. I like learning about plants and mainly trying to keep them alive. I am also part of ENN. ENN stands for Education Nature Nexus, a program connecting kids worldwide and helping them learn more about the natural environment and engaging in biodiversity conversations and taking action. We put a lot of importance on environmental education, for youth especially. We foster global citizenship, connecting people from all around the world into one online community. ENN also supports actions that youth want to take. We have conversations and connect with others, working towards the United Nations Biodiversity Conference later this month called COP16. So how exactly do we prepare for COP16? We do different challenges. These challenges involve 2 steps. After getting asked our big question, something like, how has your biome influenced the way you live and your culture and identity? We think about the answer and write it down. The next step is thinking about how we're going to share it with the rest of the world. Social media is an amazing tool for this.
Have I gone to Edmonton in the car?
You can do different posts and videos. These are all great ways to show your knowledge and thoughts with everyone else. So outside of ENN, what can we do? Because each of us can make a difference, no matter how small our actions may seem to us. To start off with, I'll tell you what I'm doing. At my school, we're putting up interpretive signs in the forest at the back of our school. These signs will be informative and give fun facts about different spots that we want to highlight. Things like fun tree species and squirrel nests. After identifying these spots, we have to research them and design these signs. After that, we build them up and set them up. Currently, we're only at the design stage, so we still have a lot left to do. So now, what can you do? Whether it's something you're doing at home in your backyard or something at school, everything is something. So start small. The little things are super important. And you don't have to be alone either. So get support from your friends, teachers, parents. Don't be afraid to ask for help. And lastly, go out and learn stuff. Use Google, read books. My favorite saying is to live is to learn. And there's so much to learn, so go out and do it. And as a conclusion, I just want to remind you all that it's important that we protect our habitats and the environment around us, as they can't defend for themselves. So start somewhere. No action is too small when it comes to what you believe in. Thank you and happy World Habitat Day.
Absolutely wonderful, Armin. Thank you so much for sharing. What a great inspirational message. I'm hoping that our students here can see that you are taking action in your school and maybe plan their own action project as well. While we kind of brainstorm on some questions, I do have a couple of reminders I wanted to get out. So as I'm going through these reminders, now's your chance to type your question in the chat or raise your hand, and we are going to get to sharing art and to answering those questions in just 2 minutes. But there are a few links I wanted to get out to all of our teachers. So my first reminder is Art for Action. So we at CGE are actually taking art that students are sharing with us and bringing it to the United Nations Biodiversity Conference. So this is where world leaders are going to be. So like the Environment Minister of Canada will be there. They will see your art. If you have art for habitat that you're working on today, you just need to take a picture of it and upload it at Art for Action. And I put the link in the chat as well. And then we'll bring those art pieces with us to share with world leaders. The second link I wanted to remind everyone of is there's a fun little quiz that you guys all get to do at the end of this event to figure out which ocean creature you are. It's 3 or 4 short questions just about the event, and then you actually get an answer at the end. Are you a shark? Are you a crab? Are you coral? You can find out by doing this quiz. So teachers, great if you can get your students to individually do it. You can also do it as a group. We are going to do it as a group quickly at the end of this event. And I think I have two more things. We have another live event coming up if you like this one. We will be coming to you live from that UN Biodiversity Conference. So you can actually talk with students like Armin who are in Colombia at that conference, meeting with world leaders, and you can ask them questions and talk to them about what it takes to be a climate and environment activist. And one final reminder, in case you have not yet signed up, it would be great if we could get you guys all to sign up for our newsletter so that you don't miss any big things coming up, any speaking opportunities and stuff like that. Okay, lots of links. They are all in the chat. This is also streamed on YouTube. So if you want to go back and get those QR codes, very easy to find them on YouTube. What we're going to do now is we are going to get to some questions. So if you have a question, you can type it in the chat or you can raise your hand. Remember, we are not unmuting unless I call on you. And for any of my guest speakers, if you are willing to give an answer to these questions, feel free to unmute and give an answer. As we're doing the questions, if we have any students who would like to show off their art, you're welcome to hold your art up to your camera. As well, while we're doing the questions, if we could get everybody in my classroom that would like to share their art, maybe we will start a lineup and we'll come through and we'll hold our art in front of the camera as we're doing our questions. Okay, so we're going to start a lineup just in the front of the classroom here. Yeah, and then we'll one at a time come up as we're doing the questions. Okay, as they're getting organized, I'm going to call on Levi to ask our first question.
Was the art thing optional? I'm just wondering.
Yes, the art was optional. If you don't have art, that's totally fine.
Okay,
Bentley,
I just drawn a bit and then I decided I didn't want to anymore.
That's totally fine. You don't have to. Bentley, do you have a question?
With the thing that you need to pick up trash, I have a friend beside my house that I can just bike ride over to his house, and he really loves picking up trash and stuff. Well, he does it sometimes with me. He's done it a couple times.
That's awesome. Do we have, just by a show of hands, does anybody else in the group do garbage pickups in their communities ever? Or at their school? Oh, well, that might be a good action we could start doing for Habitat Day. Okay. How about Mathia? Do you have a question, Mathia?
My question is Loza a celebrity? Because it looked like she was in front of a mic.
That's a great question, Louisa. Are you a celebrity?
I am not a celebrity. I don't think I am. I don't consider myself to be.
Everyone knows you. Mwahaha.
No,
You're
no,
a
no.
celebrity.
It was I was actually speaking
You're
at
a
an event.
celebrity.
No, I don't think I am, but I was just speaking at an event in London, UK to talk about mental health. So that's where that picture comes from. But thank you, though, to think that I am.
Thank you very much. Okay, so remember thinking, do we have any habitat questions? We only have about 5 more minutes. I mean, also, what is a celebrity? I don't know. That's a hard question. My group here, does anybody, okay, well, we did have one question. I know that Mala is gone, but someone else here might have a thought on this. Does anybody here know how many different fish species there are? I don't know. Maybe someone could Google it in the background. That was one question that we had during the presentation. You have a question? Perfect. I'll get you to come up right in front of the camera and you can go ahead and ask yours.
How many animals total in the world are?
Okay, so our question was, do we know how many animals total in the world are there? I might pass this one over to GreenLearning. Do you think that you would have an answer for how many total animals you think there might be in the world?
That question I don't know, but I did a quick Google search for the fish species. So there are apparently over 33,000 different types of known living fish species in the world. So that's pretty cool. That's a lot. I can quickly double check how many animal species there are, and it looks like there's a lot more. There's approximately 8.7 million living animal species on Earth.
A couple of ours we're getting a little, you have a question? Yeah, go ahead.
How many living hippopotamuses are there?
We're all about how many living things are there. You know, I will say, I noticed in the chat, a couple of us are doing a great job of Googling this in the background. I love that we're doing some research for habitat. A question about hippopotamus. I know why you're asking that. Have you guys seen, what's it named? Mudang?
No.
No one has seen Mudang? It's the world's most famous hippopotamus. Everyone watching, if you haven't seen her, you need to Google her. She's adorable. Maybe I will when we log off. That is the world's best hippo. Okay, we have time for one last question. Come right up over here. How much habitats? So you mean area wise? Okay, so we did have that great question in the trivia asking how much habitat have we lost? And I think it was something like 50% have been lost. Was it 75? 70%. See, I wasn't even listening to my own trivia. You guys are smart kids. We've lost 70% of our world habitat. So I don't know, do we have somebody that knows how much habitat we actually have left in the world? The world is a very big place, but it doesn't go on forever. Okay, while we're thinking about that, I had one last hand on my Zoom. So I'll pass it to Bentley to do our final question before we say goodbye.
Oh, I don't know why my hand was raised.
Oh, you don't have a question? That was our last one. Okay.
No, it wasn't.
Jason has one last question.
Do you think an axolotl would count as a fish? Or
an axolotl counting as fish. You know, I think I can actually answer this one. I believe an axolotl, actually, yeah, you guys can tell me, what do you think? Is an axolotl a fish? Thumbs up for yes.
It's a salamander, I think.
Down for no. What do we think?
It's a
a lot of us are saying yes. I
it's a salamander.
A salamander. So salamanders, I think, are amphibians, I think. So similar to fish, but not quite the same. If you guys check out the eCard gallery, there's lots of axolotls on there. A lot of our kids love axolotls. So if you have an axolotl picture you want to upload, send it over to GreenLearning or send it to me and I can forward it to them. They would love to share that. Now I'm just going to pop this in the chat one more time because you guys do have 5 more minutes technically before our time is done. So what I would like everybody to do with their last 5 minutes after we log off is do our which sea creature quiz are you? So as we say goodbye, I want to make sure that we all have a chance to click on that link and submit our answers. And before we log off, I do want to say thank you so much to all of our guest presenters. Thank you for working through our lockdown technical difficulties. Everything seemed to go so great. I'm so happy you guys were all able to join us. And thank you to our students for taking the time to learn about habitats today. It was so wonderful having everybody, and enjoy the rest of your afternoons.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's a couple more kids.
Hey, thank you very much.
What link is
I'll pop it in the chat one more time for you. All right. Thank you.
I have a
Yes,
question.
I will show everyone mooning. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, you can ask us quickly as we're logging off.
My question is, are you a celebrity?
Do I look like a celebrity? Come on. No.
Yes, you do. You look like.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you to our friends on YouTube. We'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye. All right. That is